Hi everybody, it's Gina. Welcome back to the Library Mouse. And today I thought it would be fun to take a look at what's new on the bestsellers list. What has changed since a couple weeks ago when I did an update. And there are some new ones, some newbies on the list that look like they would be a fun read. So let's jump in. Number 5 on the New York Times bestsellers list for the week of March 17th is not new. It has been on the list for 17 weeks, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. And this is the second book in the Empyrean series. And this time around, the main character, Violet, has a new round of training that might require her to betray the man she loves. Number 4 is also not new. It is also by Rebecca Yarros, and it's 44 weeks on the list, and it is Fourth Wing. This is the first book in the series. Violet is urged by the commanding general, who is also her mother, to become a candidate for the elite dragon riders. So we have 2 fantasy books, number 5 and number 4. But we do have a new book for number 3. It's new this week, and it is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. This is Huckleberry, my little rescue kitty. She always wants to be up here. So anyway, also fantasy, which tells you a lot. Fantasy is really popular right now. I should probably just, take the leap and dive in and read some. This is after the secret of her magic to repel attacks is revealed, Freya encounters dangerous tests by the gods. The next one, however, is not a fantasy. This is in the thriller suspense genre, and it is called 3-Inch Teeth. It's new this week, and it is by C.J. Box. It's the 24th book in the Joe Pickett series. So if you've ever read the Joe Pickett series, number 24, that's a long series. But it's a man released from prison, uses recent grizzly bear attacks, to cover his acts of revenge. So if that's your cup of tea, we have a new book for you. And number 1, guess what it is? It's The Women by Kristen Hanna. It's 4 weeks on the list, and it talks about a woman and her friends. She served in the Vietnam War in the Nurse Army Corps, and she returns home to find that America is divided about her service in the Vietnam War. So there you have the top 5 fiction on the New York Times bestsellers list this week. Now let's check out USA Today's list. Okay, so we're on to the USA Today bestseller list, and not surprisingly, they are almost identical. However, there's a couple books that are not on the New York Times list. So number 5 being an example of one. So number 5 actually sounds very interesting to me. And it is the book Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. It is a time most anticipated book. So basically it is, it's about 3 generations of a Native American family who, Star was a young survivor of the Sand Creek Massacre. He was brought to Fort Marion Prison Castle, where he was forced to learn English, practice Christianity by this evangelical prison guard, who went on to found the Carlisle Indian Industrial School. So it takes a look at the way that school and the abuse has affected 3 generations of families. So I think that looks like an excellent book. And then the only other difference is on this list, A Court of Thorn and Roses is up for number 4, Sarah J. Maas. We've talked about that before previously in my other videos. It's the number 1 in the Court of Thorn and Roses series. And then number 3, number 2, and number 1 are all the same. We have A Fate Inked in Blood. We have 3-Inch Teeth. And number 1 is The Women by Kristen Hanna. So check out all those fiction books, and let's move on to nonfiction. Okay, so some of these are new and some of them are not for the New York Times list. I like the way the New York Times has their book list separated. It's really easy to do fiction and nonfiction, whereas USA Today breaks nonfiction down into so many different categories. But anyway, number 5, we talked about this before in my last video, is The Killers of the Flower Moon. It is by David Grann, and it is 118 weeks on the list. It is the story of the murder spree in the 1920s in Oklahoma that targeted the Osage Indians because of their wealth, because of the oil that was found on their land. I definitely want to read this book, and I need to put it on my TBR list so when I go into bookstores, I can actively look for it, because I don't know about you, but when I get in a bookstore, I kind of get overwhelmed with all of my choices. And sometimes I walk out with something that I really had no intention of buying, which is sometimes good, but I'd really like to set an intention going in, like, here are some books that I have said I wanted to read. Go look for them, Gina. So number 4 was also on one of the lists from my last nonfiction video, and that is The Body Keeps the Score. It's 183 weeks on the New York Times list. It's by Bessel van der Kolk, and it is basically a look at how trauma affects the body and the mind and innovative new treatments that they are coming up with. 3 new ones on the list, though, this week, so don't get bored. The number 3 book is Attack from Within by Barbara McQuaid. She is a legal analyst for NBC News and MSNBC, and she takes a look at the effects of disinformation on law and politics. In this day and age, I think that would be a really interesting and insightful book to read. Number 2 is called Burn Book, and it is by Kara Swisher. It's a tech journalist, and she's a podcast host that gives an overview of the tech industry and the foibles of its founders. So if you're interested in tech, that would be I just think it would be a cool book to read. And finally, we have number 1 on the nonfiction list this week is Blood Money by Peter Schweizer. He's the author of Red Handed. He depicts a scheme involving the Chinese Communist Party's covert operations in America. So there you have it. Our top 5 nonfiction books on the New York Times bestsellers list this week. Let's take a look at USA Today. All right, so we have some interesting books on the USA Today nonfiction. It is pretty different than the New York Times list. So let's take a look. Surprisingly, number 5 is a cookbook. It is by Radhi Devlukia Shetty, and it is called Joyful, Cook Effortlessly, Eat Freely, Live Radiantly. And this is awesome. I am plant-based. I consider myself a pescatarian, and this has more than 125 plant-based recipes and a practical approach to making flavorful food for feeling your best. So it was just published February 27th, and it's number 5 for nonfiction and number 18 overall. Number 4 is by Savannah Guthrie, and it is called Mostly What God Does, Reflections on Seeking and Finding His Love Everywhere. It is in the Christian living genre. It was published February 20th, and it is 4 on nonfiction. It's number 12 overall. So, you know what? It is written by the co-anchor of the Today Show, Savannah Guthrie, and she shares her reflections on faith and life and God and love. Number 3. This book is called Worthy: How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life. That sounds like a good book. I definitely want to read that and review it. It's by Jamie Kern-Lima, and the blurb is, what has self-doubt already cost in your life? Imagine what you would do if you fully believed in you. It will be interesting to see the recommendations that she makes for feeling worthy. I find that sometimes a lot of books like this are exactly the same as the other books like this, and they just kind of change things a little bit. So I would really like to find a book that has brand new ideas and who you're not going to find their information in another book. So I would like to try to read that and do a review, see if it's worth the hype. It's number 9 overall, and it was published February 20th in, oh, we have another cat visitor. That one is Henry. All right. We'll just move her out of the way. They're sisters. The number 2 on the list is also new. We've Got Issues: How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity by Philip C. McGraw, better known as Dr. Phil. He's, let's take a look at this book because the blurb doesn't really tell you too much about it. So, do you think mainstream America needs to find its voice? If so, you're not alone. The country is under attack by extremists at the fringes who put ideology before sanity and stoke division for their own gain. He employs his signature, no-nonsense approach to analyze America's cultural crisis and offers practical, empirically based, action-oriented strategies to restore and support our country's collective mental health. So if you like Dr. Phil, this might be the book for you. Even if you don't like Dr. Phil, maybe you want to try it. It was just published February 27th. And it is number 7 overall, number 2 for nonfiction. And finally, the same exact book is number 1. Blood Money: Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye While China Kills Americans. With that title, are you surprised that so many people want to read it? It's a very catchy title. So this is obviously in the political genre. It was published February 27th. It's number 4 overall, number 1 in nonfiction. So if you've read any of these books and have any opinions on them, I would love to hear them. I have not read any of them, but as I said, there's a few that I want to put on my to be read list for sure. So tell me what you think. What do you think of the choices? It's interesting how different the New York Times and the USA Today lists are, don't you think? But anyway, come back in a couple weeks and I'll have a brand new what's hot this week in books. Talk to you later and happy reading.